So in this video, we're talking about the new requirement for Provincial Attestation Letter for Canada Study Permit application. Remember, back in 2024, attestation letter requirement was introduced to those that are applying for colleges and diploma and masters and PhD exempted, from getting provincial attestation letter. They mentioned back in 2024 that in 2025, masters and PhD will now require provincial attestation letter. Very happy to announce to you, I don't know if some of you are happy about it, but I'm very pleased to announce to you that starting from January 22nd, 2025, provincial attestation letter will now be required for those that are applying for, masters and the PhD. Okay, and you may ask, what is this big deal about this provincial attestation letter? I believe it's a way for them to track the study permit, the cap. Okay, they want to see that the numbers. Every province, they have their own required the total number of study permit attestation letter that they can issue, right? So this masters and PhD will now be included in that cap so that they can, track the total number of admission letters and that they are giving out for admission application, because you don't want to go above your quota, right? That is the reason why, especially for colleges, some may give you like 3-4 weeks to apply for visa after you get your attestation letter, and then it expires, and then it's not something that you can renew, right? Except in some situation cases, if you have let's say your study permit was refused and you reach out to them, there might be cases where they're able to issue you another attestation letter, but some colleges don't able to issue an attestation letter. Now, of course, if you for that had an attestation letter for if you applied for January, last year, right? And then maybe you applied this year, you already got an admission, you've gotten an attestation letter. For colleges, you mostly notice there is an expiration date on provincial attestation letter, right? Now, for 2024 study cap, you will discover that most of your attestation letter will have January 21st, 2025, as the expiration date, which means that most of those PAS were issued between January 2022, 2024 to January 23rd, 2025, okay, for 2025 study cap. So for starting from January 22nd, new provincial letter that will be issued will now be for 2025 cap, okay? So which means it's going to span, to December 31st, 2025. So that's going to be the new attestation letter. It must be valid when you apply for your study permit, right? Your attestation letter is expired, you will not be able to apply for your Canada study permit, okay? Now, if your study permit get refused and your attestation letter is still valid, you can submit a new application, a study permit application with the provincial letter that you got, a provincial attestation letter that you got before. But they said that your fees will be refunded. So this is a situation where if you submitted your application without an attestation letter, your application will be refused and I think withdrawn or something like that, and then the funds will be refunded to you, okay? Now, there are some, they've listed those that do not need provincial attestation letter, okay? So this link is very clear. I'll try to put the link in the comment section. If you're applying for, this is basically for children now, for preschool. If your child is applying for preschool or primary school or secondary school up until grade 12, they don't need an attestation letter, okay? Now, they will require you to write a short letter. I just noticed that, like a few days ago, I noticed that on the 22nd of January that if you're applying for, if you're exempted from getting an attestation letter, they're going to ask you to write a letter to explain which of the exemption that you meet. So, another one is going to be school participating in the Francophone minority community student pilot program, the federally designated military college, schools in Quebec in vocational training programs that lead to diploma, vocational studies, attestation of vocational specialization and skills training certificate in Quebec, those ones don't require it. And if you're an exchange student, if you are studying under an exchange arrangement between your whole institution and a DLR in Canada, and you don't pay tuition fees to the DLR as an exchange student, then you don't need an attestation letter. If you are applying for a study permit to do your study as an exchange student, you don't need an attestation letter, right? If you've received a scholarship from Global Affairs Canada, it's a very prestigious scholarship. This is not your normal scholarship that you get from your university as a graduate assistant, teaching assistant. That's a different, right? And then they also make sure if you are entering Canada, if you are in Canada or you are entering Canada at a port of entry and are eligible for an exemption for a certain study permit requirement based on a public policy as part of a migration response to a crisis or other pressure, right? Maybe if you come from a country, there are crises, and then they give a study permit from that country, you may be exempted from getting PAL. So, but these are some of the things you need to find out, okay? And then it also talk about some indigenous families of indigenous people. Now, if you've already in Canada, one of the following situations must apply to you. If it doesn't, you will need the PAL. You're applying for a study permit extension at the same DLI and the same level as your current study permit, okay? Let's you're already in Conestoga College studying diploma in social worker, and then you are changing course in that same school to another diploma. You don't need provincial attestation letter. If you are extending your let's say your study permit expired already in Canada, if you are extending, you don't need a new provincial attestation letter, right? Then they also mention that if you are under a removal order but can't be removed in Canada at this time, you also, you don't need an attestation letter, right? If you have a temporary resident permit that is valid for 6 months. Now, temporary resident permit is not your study permit or your work permit, right? It is a permit that may be granted to in exceptional situation to a person who does not meet the requirement of Canada's immigration law to enter or remain in Canada. So it's not the same thing as temporary resident visa, okay? So don't get confused with that. And then you are a protected person, right? If you are a protected person, is basically if the Immigration and Refugee Board has found that you are either a conventional refugee, you are a person in need of protection, right? So, and then Immigration, IRCC, they've also approved your application for pre-removal assessment risk. You don't need the provincial attestation letter, okay? And then if you are eligible for permanent residency, okay, if you are eligible based on they want to call humanitarian and compassionate ground, you don't need provincial attestation letter. If you want to learn more about it, you can check it on our website. Based on a current public policy, okay, there are kind of different policy, especially policy to exempt certain PRO applicants from work permit requirements, okay? So there are some public policies on that, so you can check those ones out. Then if you are a spouse, now if you are eligible for PRO based on, okay, those are things I'm sure. If you're eligible for PRO based on humanitarian grant, based on public policy, if you're applying for PRO as a spouse or common law partner, through the spouse or common law partner in Canada class, you don't need a provincial attestation. That is, if you want to study, right? If you want to study, and at the same time you are eligible for permanent residency, but you haven't completed the application process, you will not require attestation letter, okay? But you have to think about the eligibility. So this does not mean that you are in Canada, you are studying, and you think that you will qualify for PRO when you graduate, postgraduate permit, and other things. So that is not the eligibility that they are talking about here, okay? Then you will definitely need to provide proof that you meet one of the above exemptions if you don't provide a PAL with your study permit application. So that's where I explained before, in situations like this, you definitely need to write a short letter to explain which kind of exemption that you meet, okay, or that you meet rather. You definitely have to explain which of the criteria that you meet, okay. Now you can see that in all of the list there is no bachelor's. Bachelor's you already had to get a or provincial attestation letter. You can see that masters and PhD, they are no longer included in the list of those that are exempted from getting, provincial attestation letter. So if you got admission already and you have not applied for study permit to apply after 22nd of January 2025, I'll suggest that you reach out to your school to have talk with them about the possibility of how you can get the provincial attestation letter. If you apply without it, your application is going to be withdrawn and your fees refunded to you, and that's going to be it. Okay. If you're looking for somebody to talk to one-on-one as regarding Canada, application, going to Canada, study in Canada, and other things, then there's going to be a link in the description. Reach out to me from my website. I'll be glad to help you. The website is www.gradnext.com. I'll be glad to help you in this journey. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, do it to hit that subscribe button and click on that notification bell so whenever new videos are released, you will be the first person to get notified. And then let me know in the comment section which country are you watching from, which program are you applying for. Are you applying for bachelor's, diploma, master's, or PhD? Does any of the conditions apply to you? Let us know in the comment section. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.